Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single episode. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take all of that, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons I proudly fly that American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. All right, we are back, and yes, Happy New Year to all. Michael Woods, hola, he says. Corey Buchan, Happy New Year, watching over on YouTube. Flo, Happy New Year on LinkedIn. SP Freight, Jamie, what is up? 2024, Happy New Year to you. Jonathan Wolschlager, Happy New Year, my man. Bill McIntyre, Happy New Year and good morning. And Tracy St. Clair, good morning. Happy New Year, everyone watching over on YouTube as well. So yeah, it is. It's 2024. I hope all of you have held yourself accountable yesterday and today to your New Year's resolutions and everything else that's going on in your life to, new year, new me, change all that stuff. If that's what your plans are. I don't personally subscribe to any of that stuff. Like I was talking about before the holiday break, I'm just about focusing on what I can do every single day inside of my business and everything. And let me see here. Sunny Sharma, good morning and Happy New Year, Orange Shirt Gang. Sunny, good to see you out there. And yeah, it's that time of year though, where, everyone's assessing, what are they going to do differently? How are things going to change? And I think that, from my perspective, it's always going to start and stop with you, right? I started, because this year, I've got a lot of goals that I'm going after. And to me, it's one of those that I got to work every single day to improve me and what my actions go along with it, right? Leading, into my organization and everything this year, like, everything's going to be different. From the sense of if I've laid out, I don't even want to call them goals. It's criteria of things that I'm going to do this year. It's going to start first and foremost with completing Live Hard. It's a program out there. You can Google it. 75 Hard is the start of it, but Live Hard and everything. And, because again, I'm a firm believer that if you want any change in your world, or in the world in general, it's got to start and stop with you. And, last year, after reading a couple of books, it is on buying my time back and everything. It's about becoming more and more efficient with my time. And, even just coming in this morning, and holding myself to getting some tasks done before I, would go and talk to my business partner. And, because I just look at it's, if I'm going to do it, I gotta do it. Right. Like I got to hold myself accountable and I got to start in, and I can't waver away from my plan and everything. And cause it's easy, right? It's easy to get distracted. And those are some of those things where it's like, I got to really focus on limiting my distractions and stay on my plan that I know will work if I execute upon it, right? And limiting the distractions for me is going to start with limiting, like social media, right? So it's like, if I'm going to go on there, I'm going to set a timer on my phone, 5 minutes max, and then that's it, right? Because that's not moving the needle for my long-term growth, right? So it's like, for me, my big things is going to be limiting distractions and really focusing in on that throughout the year. And I just think that, it's so crucial because, and especially because I was saying, like, I was, you go over to my friends, the Trucking and for Millennials podcast. They just released a brand new episode today. And I was on there just, I think it was like a 10-minute segment of it. But like, I truly feel that this year is going to be, I hope I'm wrong, but I truly feel like there's going to be a lot of volatility in this year above, like on the major scales, right? And again, it's controlling, controlling the controllables, and Michael Woods. I got to be honest, man. Why do you blow up my comments with all this stuff? Like I'm here to put out a show to add value to people, and I don't know what is going on here, man. But like you haven't been on here for a while, and now you're jumping back on, and then you're just inundating the feed with this stuff, dude. I don't know what this is, man. But this is the literally the epitome of what I'm talking about eliminating my distractions, man. This is taken away from everybody else who's coming here to get information from this. I don't know what this is about, man. But if you're here to add value to the audience and into this stuff, man, you're more than welcome. But if this is just going to be, inundating the news feed or the chat feed on here, man, I don't want no part of this. Catherine Whitehouse, good morning and happy new year. Barry Allmiller, good morning, happy new year. Jordan Farmer, happy new year. Let's get it. Sydney Thiessen, good morning and happy new year. All right, you guys. Well, let's get into some articles here and break them down. And excuse me. All the links to the articles will be put up on the Freight Coach YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach. Excuse me, I'm sorry, just getting distracted here. Anyways, the links to the articles will be put up on the Freight Coach YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay, which is available on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. But first article we are going to get into, and this is one that obviously affects everybody in this industry. It's from ttnews.com, and then it's CARB to delay enforcement of registration requirements. This is out in Sunny Sharma's backyard out in California. And then it is the California Air Resource Board is allowing fleets flexibility with some reporting requirements mandated under its Advanced Clean Fleets rule, which is set to take effect this year. The agency, this came out right before New Year's, sent a letter to the California Trucking Association, said it would not take enforcement action as to the rule's high priority or drayage fleet reporting requirements or registration prohibitions, until the U.S. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, either grants a preemptive waiver applicable to those regulatory provisions or determines a waiver is not necessary. CTA in October filed a federal lawsuit seeking to block the rule. The ACF regulations applies to trucks performing drayage operations at seaports and rail yards, fleets owned by state, local, and federal government agencies, and so-called high priority fleets that are defined as those that own, operate, or direct at least one vehicle in California and which have either 50 million or more in gross annual revenue, or alternatively, fleets that own, operate, or have common ownership or control of a total of 50 more vehicles. The regulation affects medium and heavy duty on-road vehicles with gross vehicle weight rating greater than 8,500 pounds, off-road yard tractors, and light-duty mail and package delivery vehicles. The agency in the letter also said its registration systems will not prevent fleets from adding new vehicles powered by internal combustion engines during the affected period. The letter further states that CARB will not take enforcement against actions that exceed the useful life periods. In the rule, this is defined as trucks that are either 13 years old, starting from the model year that its engine was first certified by CARB or EPA, or alternatively, the date that the vehicle exceeds 800,000 vehicle miles traveled, or 18 years from the model year that the engine was first certified by CARB or the EPA. This concession means that CARB will not deregister these vehicles from its database until the EPA grants a preemption waiver for the regulatory provisions or determines a waiver is not necessary. Kind of sounds like a bunch of garbage to me. I don't know about you guys, why this is even really a thing, right? It's just California being California with everything. They just make it so hard for people to do business out there. And there's so many different laws and rules that they try and throw out there. And just, oh my gosh, it's so insane to me. And I have reached out to the California Trucking Association to have somebody come on my show and really address a lot of this stuff more in depth, right? Because a lot of these articles are obviously surface level information, but it doesn't always tell the whole story. And that's what I want to get, is to have this out there and tell the whole story about what is actually going on. Because, like, it was back in, I think, like 2011 or 12 when the CARB compliance thing came into effect about trucks and reefer units and everything out there. And then it's so on, it's just come on more and more in depth, and just it's just one thing after another, right? And this is the problem with a lot of the overreach and the more and more rules and regulations that are out there. Is it's always just the start, right? And it just continues to trickle more and more, on top of that. And then, I mean, the state of California has already put out there that I think it was like by 2030 or by 2035 that there's not going to be any more combustion engines out there for sale, right? So it's like that's just the start of it. It starts there, and then they just continue the grip going on. And then it is, let me see here. In the letter addressed to the California Trucking Association Senior VP for Government Affairs, Chris Shimoda, and signed by CARB Executive Officer Stephen Cliff, the agency still encourages fleets to comply with these rules. Cliff in the letter says, in light of the representatives from CARB, I understand the CTA has agreed not to file a preliminary injunction motion seeking to enjoin enforcement of the challenge provision out there. He said, we appreciate the opportunity to discuss these issues with regulated parties and other stakeholders. California is just the model of what not to do. From my perspective, all right, first and foremost, that article was from ttnews.com, and that's CARB to delay enforcement of registration requirements. It's just one thing after another with the state of California. And I bring this up due to the fact that we all know that the state of California is like the world's fifth or something largest economy, and the amount of freight that travels through that state alone, like, it's just the precursor for what happens in other areas, right? Like, it's almost like it's a trial run to see. So it's like when I look at articles like this, I'm not just looking at the state of California, I'm looking at where does it go next, right? And then on top of that, how does it not just continue to further evolve? Because the state of California has already laid out their plans about the whole zero emissions and everything. And, I think it's also pretty, I should state right now that, they don't even have a power grid that can sustain its current infrastructure, let alone putting all those trucks and everything out there. But like, this is just what happens, is it starts in one spot and then it just continues to trickle down. And then it's just, I just don't get it, right? Like, it is going to have a major effect on the transportation of goods because, obviously in there, you guys, drayage, where does it all start? You guys, it starts with the port, right? And then where will it go from here? That's where a lot of this stuff is, from my perspective, is it starts there, but where does it go next, right? It's at drayage. And then we all know where it's going to go from there, you guys. It's going to continue to trickle down and trickle down and trickle down. And then until their ultimate agenda, which is battery powered everything. And again, like I put out the other day, if you think a lithium mine is better for the environment than drilling for oil, just Google image it. I'm not going to get into it on this show, but just Google image it and tell me how that's better. Claudia Catlett, excuse me. What up? Happiest New Year to y'all. John Radvansky, good morning and happy New Year, my freight friends. Let's go, he says. J-Man493, what's a bold prediction for 2024? Oh, man. I'm going to keep this to the trucking industry because I try my best to keep this to talking about freight and freight only. A bold prediction to me for 2024 is that the market will recover. It just will not be a cataclysmic rise that I think a lot of people are attaching the word recovery to. I just don't see it jumping exponentially higher than it's going to raise, right? Like, I think that kind of comes along with it. So my bold prediction is there's going to be a market recovery. It is just not going to be as effective and drastic as I think a lot of people are kind of hoping for. I think it's going to be a gradual increase to the market that's going to play out over a couple of years. I just think that there's too much uncertainty with the presidential election this year. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that if there is a change in administration, depending on which side of the aisle it goes, it'll be interesting to see. But I think that there's a lot of major issues that are attached to how fast the recovery would or would not actually happen. So that's my bold prediction in regards to transportation. It is a year for the small guy, and and that's the thing, you guys. And like Jamie brings up a good point here. Um, you know, you got to control what you can control. And that's what we talked about a lot to end the year last year. And this is what we're going to continue to focus in on. Like, again, if you haven't even started yet on like going after the stuff that you said you were going to, in between Christmas and New Year's, where everybody's high on life and they're going to make all those changes. Start today. Don't wait any further. Enough's enough. You got to jump in. But I think like this, when I hear Jamie say this, and I would agree, I think that there is going to be more market share taken over by smaller providers this year than in larger providers. Because I just think that there is a certain line that's been met out there where, again, and I want to say that this has everything to do with your service levels, right? If you're a large provider and you're servicing everybody at those levels that are out there, I just don't think that those days of we work with this company, you're lucky to work with us style approach, which comes along with larger providers in this industry. I don't think that that's going to last. I think that there's going to be more of a push for, more of an opportunity for small guys to come in and take up some serious market share this year. All right, next article we are going to break down is from the JOC. And I think this is very timely. This article came out like last Friday, excuse me. And it's a decade on, logistics industry still awaits proof that VC, venture capital, is a welcome partner. This was written by my friend Eric Johnson. The demise in November of Convoy was a seminal moment for the logistics industry, not just in 2023, but across a phase of investment into logistics technology that stretches back a decade. In some ways, Convoy's situation was an anomaly. Market forces in the truckload world conspiring to bring down a company that had raised $1 billion in venture capital. But in other ways, Convoy's demise was not unusual at all in the world of VC. It's just a reality that the majority of venture-backed businesses fail. And that's one thing that I think is a really good point. I'm going to be releasing an episode here coming up with a known VC in the freight industry, but I also have some friends who work in venture capital, not in freight, but that's one thing that I'm glad Eric pointed out here. A lot of venture capital funds know that, because that's the thing, is they take a lot of money. It's like the spray and pray method, right? They throw a lot of money out there and the anticipation that they're going to hit one winner. Right? It's just like when you're out there cold calling for shippers, you're going to call 100 to get essentially one, right? So it's kind of like that same philosophy, but they're just talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in transactions. The question going into 2024 is whether Convoy was an outlier or a portent of things to come along in the VC-backed software providers or technology. There is not a single example yet of a venture-backed logistics startup achieving the outcome typically desired by investors. Look at the most prominent names in the category in terms of brand recognition and venture capital raised: Convoy, Flexport, Project 44, Four Kites, and Freightos. Flexport went through a high-profile leadership struggle, which, again, you guys can go through and check into that. And then stretch this out further, and you'll find companies like European Forwarder Fordo, on-demand warehousing technology provider Flex, and trucking technology provider Cloud Trucks, which have all raised copious amounts of venture capital and have laid off staff in 2023. And then under the subheading of lack of alignment, does venture capital actually work in logistics? Are the sales cycles too long to align out there? Flexport, seeded in 2014 and Convoy in 2015, said Santosh Sankar, he's a managing partner of supply chain focused venture capital firm Dynamo. We're just at the edge of the proverbial 10-year period where you'll see venture-backed companies have a major liquidity event for their investors. Some of the largest outcomes on these days can take closer to 14 or 15 years. Sanker said founders raising too much capital was a problem since it can actually reduce the optionality for an exit. There's a market of 400 to 500 million M&A exits if a company hasn't engorged itself on investment. And then expanding this out, venture-backed companies aren't the only ones to reduce headcount or make leadership changes in 2023. Maersk reduced headcount, and then E2 Open moved from their CEO after the mid-year amid faltering share prices. And I think that I've heard that a lot, right? Like in recently about raising too much capital. And then, because I was listening to another podcast here over the New Year's break, and they were talking about this, about there's a person out there who like create a founder, billion-dollar company. And by the time they raised so much capital that by the time everything was sold, it sold for $1 billion. They made like $3 million in total. They founded the company, but they raised so much. And obviously, as you guys know, when you raise capital, they don't just like deposit money into your bank account. Like you give up equity in your organization for all of this. So it's crazy to sit here and listen to all of that and know that there's such a small window for a lot of this too. And I truly feel, and again, like this isn't me ripping on Convoy or anything like that. I truly feel like they are going to have case studies written about them, about kind of like what happened and a lot of like what not to do. And that's the gift and the curse of going out there. And again, like I had said the other day, all the props in the world for Dan Lewis for going out there and starting and trying to make it work and doing it. And again, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years, but I think that at the end of the day, there's a lot to be learned from a lot of this stuff. And how are you going to apply that into your business? And I think that that's the big thing for you to take into consideration going into 2024, because all the people that I have spoken with who are in the investment world, you can still find investors, right? Like you can still find and raise capital out there. It's just not ever going to be like it kind of was, unless, essentially they're going to give away money again for free here at some point in time. So I think that it's good. It was a really good read. And if you're out there and you're curious about the investment community and raising funds or anything like that, like this is a really, really good article to read. My man, Eric Johnson, wrote this from the JOC, talking about VC being a welcome partner in logistics. It's going to be interesting, right? It's going to be interesting. Last article we are going to break down today is from FreightWaves, and this was navigating the brokerage landscape in 2024. And I chose this because I had Chris Fields on my show with Zeal Logistics, and I saw that he was in this article, and I wanted to talk about this because this was about the changing landscape of navigating the brokerage landscape in 2024. And then it's kind of like a Q&A. And then how has customer satisfaction changed in the brokerage industry? And they had answered the quick adoption of technology has changed the overall experience between brokers and their customers. Everyone assumes technology will fix everything. Yet what we have noticed is that the more your organization runs towards technology, you see less human interaction. And I think that factors into overall customer satisfaction and driver relationship retention. One of our most requested roles has been night dispatch because drivers who have spent most of their days on the road still enjoy talking to someone. They don't want an automated text message or a pickup number or a delivery appointment time. They want to form real relationships with the broker. I've said that a lot, and I agree with them here. You cannot automate, or you can't automate like bad training, right? And you can't, because I truly feel this way. Like you need to leverage technology to a point, but people will always crave that human to human interaction that's out there. And that's what you really need to focus on and then especially like building it up based on the demand, right? Like don't just throw technology at something to think that that's going to all of a sudden improve your bottom line, because it won't, right? Then it also says, what role can technology play in improving operations? Technology has come a long way. And then some of the providers weren't as disruptive as they had thought. I think we all need to remember the difference between what I would call digitization versus automation. You can digitize a lot of functionality within a brokerage, but it's still hard to fully automate the transaction. Overall, we need to meet in the middle. I actually really like that response. I think that that's the best way of put it, right? Like you can digitize a ton of your like the menial tasks that are out there, but you can't fully automate everything. And then it goes on to say, What challenges does the industry face in attracting or retaining talent? And I really like this question. Chris Fields, who was on my show, said, I was at TQL for 15 years, where there was a revolving door towards the end. It doesn't feel sustainable to me to bring in a new class every 2 weeks of 25 recent college grads. And then I think that you need to be more selective in your hiring. In 2008 and 9, the landscape was different. You had to show up and bring some value. And I think we need to go back to that. I personally think that I think that that's like could be a legitimate slogan out there in the job market in 2024. You better bring some fucking value, right? Because the days of just putting people in bodies, like when you're operating in an environment like we are right now, people are not going to hire for the sake of hiring, and not in this market, right? I'm not saying that that can't happen, but right now, you got to really bring value if you want to keep your job. I think all the layoffs and some of the verbiage of what was been done here recently kind of speaks truth to that. And then it goes on to say that churn is high in this industry. And then being more efficient in how we hire and think about costs. And I think that, because again, like I was talking about, I'm going to hire 10 people this year. I don't believe in that hire 10 and hope to work out kind of methodology that they're talking about there. And again, I want to, and this is a perfect world scenario, right? At the end of the day, I want to bring the right people on. All right. I want to bring the right people on and I want to provide them with the right technology to amplify their outreach that puts more money in their pocket, because I don't cap commission or anything like that. But I think that, what I personally am betting on this. The landscape and brokerage in 2024 for me is going to be back to the basics. All right. The skills, the blocking and tackling that I was brought up on this industry, I am going to sell on that and continue to sell on that, because I think that's what more people want. Yes, I'm going to have technology to offer to my customers and my carriers alike, but they will never be automated. The transaction is never going to be fully automated. And I'm going to go back to teaching the basics of this industry and executing upon that every single time. But that article is from Freight Waves, and that was navigating the brokerage landscape in 2024. Barry Allmiller says 100% humans are social by nature. Happy New Year to you, Carla Isted. But that'll be it for today, you guys. As always, the links to the articles will be uploaded. And especially if you guys got value in what you heard here today, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there. This is how we reach more people, and most importantly, how we help more people, is because if you guys see value, your network will see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.